So continuing with cartilage, it's relatively strong but flexible. Think of the cartilage again at the end of your nose. It is avascular. That means it doesn't have any blood vessels supplying its cells. So it heals slowly. If you've ever damaged your cartilage, in particular in your knee, you know about healing slowly there. And it functions as a flexible cushioning skeleton. So, for example, you have cartilage in your knees that covers the ends of the bones where the joint forms. And they have other cartilages that help cushion the joint. So it acts as a flexible skeleton. Now, bone is a different type of connective tissue. It's a solid connective tissue because, again, that extracellular matrix is infused or hardened with calcium salts and collagen fibers. So that makes bone very strong, but not excessively brittle because of the protein collagen fibers. So bones can bend and twist a certain amount before they'll actually break. Okay, number 5, adipose tissue. This is fat, and it stores energy in fat cells. It stores fat in closely packaged cells. Where's our adipose tissue here? And we find that throughout our body. Functions as an energy bank. If you eat excess food and don't balance that with exercise, some of that energy is stored as adipose tissue, fat. It also functions to insulate the body and helps cushion the body and cushion and surrounding certain organs. So some amount of adipose tissue is necessary. Now, blood, liquid connective tissue, and it's the plasma that is the liquid extracellular matrix here. And it transports substances in the body. Gases, right? Oxygen, carbon dioxide for cellular respiration, glucose for cellular respiration, transporting waste materials, transports hormones, proteins, numerous things. And major role in immunity because of the white blood cells that it transports throughout the body, and in particular sites of injury or infection due to things like cuts. And unique to the matrix of blood, it has proteins that are dissolved in the matrix of the blood, but they will form clots whenever a blood vessel breaks. So the blood clotting cascade that helps blood vessels heal themselves. Okay, let's move to muscle tissue. Abundant in animals. It's made up of long, thin cells, cylindrical cells. So often the muscle cells are called muscle fibers. And the longest ones are in skeletal muscle, the muscle cells or muscle fibers. They have specialized proteins within the cells that are arranged such that they can literally slide past each other and allow the cells to shorten when they're stimulated by a nerve. So the proteins within the muscle cells slide past each other so the muscle cells contract. And because of that, the entire muscle will be able to contract. And since the muscles attached to our skeleton, to the bones, it helps move the muscles at the joints and allowing for movement. If it's cardiac muscle, the contraction of the cardiac muscle, that means the heart muscle, then that contracts the chambers of the heart, allowing the blood to be pumped out of the heart and move through the cardiovascular system. If it's the muscle surrounding the walls or in the walls of the digestive system, smooth muscle contracts relatively slowly and it helps push the food through our digestive system. So skeletal muscles attached to bones by tendons. Tendons are connective tissue. And the function of skeletal muscle is to move the skeleton and then move us through voluntary muscle contraction. In other words, you are under conscious control of your skeletal muscles. Cardiac muscle. Muscle of the heart. Its contraction produces the coordinated heartbeat pumping of the heart to propel blood to the cardiovascular system. And then smooth muscle in the walls of many organs and contracts relatively slowly, and main function is to propel food through the digestive system. Or the smooth muscle of the uterus, it contracts during labor to push the fetus out through the birth canal at childbirth. Or say the smooth muscle of the urinary bladder, when the urinary bladder fills, the smooth muscle will contract, allowing you to urinate, pee. Okay? And again, lining the walls of the intestines, but also most of the digestive tract, allowing the movement of food and then ultimately waste materials out of the body. The blood vessels are actually lined. The walls of the blood vessels have smooth muscle. And when the smooth muscle contracts, the blood vessels constrict. When the smooth muscles relax, the blood vessels dilate. And that helps alternate and regulate the blood flow throughout the body. So when you're exercising, for example, the blood vessels that serve the muscles, they dilate to increase blood flow to the muscles to increase oxygen delivery, glucose delivery. Contrasting that, let's say when you're eating, you had a meal, the blood vessels that serve the digestive system dilate, so you get more blood in the digestive system to deal with the digestion of food, and at the same time, the muscles in this, the blood vessels serving the muscles will constrict to limit the blood flow to the muscles, because basically they're not needed at that point. So when you blush, for example, the blood vessels dilate in the skin of your face, causing your blushing effect, right? Or if you get really cold, the blood vessels serving the skin will constrict, minimizing blood flow to the skin, minimizing loss of body heat to help conserve energy and conserve heat when you get cold, for example. Okay, let's move on to nervous tissue. Makes communication and information processing possible in the body. You'll find nervous tissue in the brain, spinal cord, and in the elaborate network of nerves that innervate, that serve the entire body. And the brain, spinal cord, and the associated nerves are made up of neurons, which are nerve cells. So a neuron, the nerve cell, is the basic unit of nervous tissue. And it's a unique type of cell that's able to receive sensory information. If you think about you're being able to smell something, it's because you have nerve cells in your nose that are able to detect the chemicals of odor and send a nerve impulse or a nerve signal to the brain. And then your brain is able to interpret those signals and interpret that as a particular type of odor or smell. So in order to do all that, the neurons from the nose, skin of the nose, all the way to the brain are able to be stimulated and generate a nerve impulse. And let's go on to this interconnection of systems, meaning how the organs and the organ systems function together. So an organ made up of 2 or more tissues, usually 3 or all 4 tissues, that form some functional working unit or structure that performs a specific function. So a good example is like the heart. It pumps blood. Its function is to pump blood. It's an organ. It's made up of actually all 4 tissues. Your digestive tract, your small intestine, it's an organ because it's made up of multiple tissues. The inner lining, where the food's going to be moving through, it's covered with an epithelial tissue. So it's one tissue. There's connective tissue that binds the epithelial tissue to the underlying muscle tissue. So that's 1, 2, 3 tissues. And on the outside of the small intestine, the tube of the small intestine, there's an overlying epithelial tissue there as well. And actually the digestive tract is innervated by nerves from the central nervous system, so it also has nervous tissue, has all 4, which is not shown here. So like your brain, heart, your muscles, small intestines, large intestines, stomach, your eyes, kidneys, etc. These are all organs made up of multiple tissues. So like the heart. Most of it's muscle tissue, cardiac muscle tissue, that's muscle. It's lined on the outside and on the inside, the chambers with epithelial tissue, that's 2 types. The valves of the heart have a lot of connective tissue, that's 3 types. And the heart is innervated, served by the nervous system, so that's all 4 tissue types in this organ of the heart. So organs don't work in isolation or by themselves. Organs are linked together to work as systems. So organ systems are teams of organs that work together and perform important functions. So here's a skeletal system comprised of multiple bones. Each bone is a distinct organ. It's sometimes not easy to think about that. It's like a bone's an organ. So yeah, it's made up of connective tissue, the bone itself. It does have smooth muscle in it because it has blood supply. It has blood vessels in it, so that's another connective tissue. It's innervated by the nervous system. If you've ever broken a bone, you can definitely feel that, right? And the blood vessels are lined with epithelial tissue, the inner lining of a blood vessel. So it has all 4, bones have all 4 connective tissue, okay? So, for example, again, the skeletal system can be considered an organ system. So let's look at the organ systems in the body. There's the circulatory system. So it's a system that's made up of organs, the heart, and the associated blood vessels. Main function, transporting substances, respiratory gases, nutrients like glucose, blood sugar, waste materials, hormones, white blood cells throughout the entire body. The respiratory system. Nasal cavity, pharynx or throat, larynx, voice box, trachea or windpipe, and the lungs are important for moving air into the lungs for gas exchange. And then in the lungs, there's more gas exchange with the blood vessels serving the lungs so that you can get oxygen into your bloodstream. And at the same time, remove carbon dioxide from your bloodstream into your lungs so you can breathe that out. So, pharynx, larynx, trachea, right, lungs, those are all organs of the respiratory system. Muscular system, the muscles that move the body. Each muscle is a distinct organ. And the skeletal muscles are under conscious control by the brain to allow you to move your body. What's not shown here is the cardiac muscle, part of the cardiovascular system, the heart, and the smooth muscle, primarily of the digestive tract. But if you remember, all the blood vessels are lined in their walls with some smooth muscle as well. But primarily here we're focusing or highlighting the skeletal muscles. Main function is to move the body, but also generate heat. When you exercise, your body temperature warms up, right? You feel warmer because your muscles are using so much glucose, cellular respiration, and it generates heat. Digestive system. The reason you eat, you ingest food, is so that you can digest the food, break it down into small molecules that can get absorbed in the bloodstream at the small intestines. So now those nutrients get into the bloodstream and they are delivered throughout the body by the cardiovascular system. So digestive system, physical and chemical digestion of the food we eat so that we can absorb the nutrients into the bloodstream. And at the other end, what you release into the environment, right, defecation, pooping, is basically the materials that you never digest and or never absorb into your body. Okay, urinary system rids the body of certain wastes, like metabolic wastes, through cell metabolism. They get into the bloodstream, and then the blood enters into the kidneys where filtration occurs, and filtration by the kidneys produces urine, which goes down the ureters, stored in the urinary bladder until you're ready to urinate or micturate or pee, and then the urine is expelled through the urethra into the environment. And also water balance. If you drink lots and lots of water, well, you're going to pee more because your urinary system is eliminating excess water. If you don't drink much, you minimize urination and you pee less.